All right, welcome back to Q2 week 1. This week we've been making a table. Yesterday during day 1 we actually modeled the table. So we were here. So at the end of yesterday you should have a file that basically has your table created, including the top and your base. We used the line tool to create an edge, and then we lathed it with the lathe modifier. Then we extruded out the bottom and then did our edge smoothing so it looked nice and smooth. Today we are going to create the UV. So that means we are going to reset the transforms, make sure it's all snapped to the center, everything's great. Then we will create the UV checker material, we'll UV the table, and then we will render and save the UV. So let's get going. So we ended up yesterday with this. I'm going to hit Shift F to get started. You've got the file here. The first thing we're going to do before we ever model or before we ever start UVing is we want to make sure we reset the transforms. That's a consistent thing we will do basically all the time. So go into the Utilities tab with a hammer over here, and then go down to Reset Xform, and then click Reset Selected. All right. Now it should. Oh, I didn't have anything selected. There. Now that reset selection turned out to do some weird stuff. So let's go ahead and close that, collapse all, yes, and now we need to reset to make sure this thing is organized. So right now it flips sideways, which is good because that means it must have thought it was sideways to begin with. So let's go ahead and hit front view. Let's go left then. I'm going to hit E for rotate, make sure hit A for angle snap is on, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. That's good. Hit front, aligned. Now I'm going to reset the pivot point. So I'm going to grab my pivot point, hit W, and align that to the actual object. Okay. Now it's hard to see my object, so I'm going to hide my reference layer. So that way I can see it a little better. I'm going to make sure the snaps are on. I'm going to right click and make sure vertex and grid points, grid lines. I'm actually going to take those two off for now so that I can snap it just to the vertex, because I want to make sure I snap it to the center vertex of my object. Okay, so from the top view I need to make sure it's perfectly aligned, and it is perfectly aligned. So now I can zoom out using my middle mouse wheel, affect pivot only, turn that off, and go back here now. So there we go. That should be good. P for perspective. Now I'm going to reset my transforms again just to make sure. Reset selected. It doesn't flip on me. Collapse all. Yes. All right, cool. So now I'm ready to UV this object. So first things first, I need to think about how the wood, because I'm going to make this thing out of wood, so I need to think about which direction wood grain would go. If you create an object like this, if you're actually making it with your hands, right, you're going to have a table. The table will be made out of wood. The wood grain would go a very specific direction. Like for the top, it would have to go back and forth. Usually they take large pieces of wood, glue them together, and then make the tabletop out of those pieces. Usually they don't have them all sort of come in from the edges in a like these vertex points do. It would be straight across. So let's go ahead and grab the top. So I'm going to hit left view, grab the top, deselect this section here by holding Alt, so get just the top. Now you could say that it makes sense to just get the top instead of the edges, because when we flip out the edges, when we relax it, that means the grain would be going the exact same direction on the sides as it would on the top, and that doesn't really make sense, because wood grain, when you cut a piece of wood, you've got two different sort of directions on that wood. So for instance, so if we've got wood grain, let's just do a quick Google search. So we've got two different directions. If you've got an end piece, it would look something like this. But if the piece that runs parallel to that would look like this. So we want to have this sort of edge. We want to make sure that the grain makes sense. So at this point, we're going to planar map this from the top. So let's go ahead. First, I should call this table, so it makes sense. I go to my modifier list, type in UN, and hit enter for unwrap. Open your UV editor, go to your faces. Now because I'd already selected that in editable poly, it realizes that I probably intended to do that in my UV modifier. I'm going to turn off ignore back facing, and then I'm going to planar map that from Z. Planar map from Z. Now since it is from the top, on the top, and the projection comes from the top, then we're in pretty good shape here. We should be able to just zoom out a little bit, double click this, pull it over. If we want to, we could relax it now. Because it's coming from the top, it should be fine, and it is. Remember, we relax under Tools, Relax, Relax by Polygon Angles. Start relax, and then it's basically going to be perfect anyway because it's already flat. The next piece that we should do is this outside piece. All right, so I'm going to hit left. I'm going to grab this edge here. Make sure I only have that edge. I'm going to grow it, I think will be the best way, because I want to get both sides here. But I don't want to get the inside edge. So I'm going to go ahead and grow the XY selection, and then hit top. Make sure I have the select mode that I want, right? And then I'm going to hold, make sure I'm on Q, and then hold Alt and deselect the inside here. So I just have the outside. Now this is basically a cylinder, so once again we are going to cylindrical map. So cylindrical map from Z, and you'll notice my cylinder looks pretty good. I don't really care how the cylinder, where it's broken, because it's a round table, so it doesn't really have a front or back. So we're just going to go with wherever it sits for now, and double click that to move it. Now in here you can probably find it's got some weird edges that have been sliced. So I'm going to grab some of those edges now and stitch them back together. I click once, stitch, click once, stitch, and click once, stitch. Now that should keep everything together. Now from here, I should be able to grab polygon and then grab the entire element. And now Tools, Relax by Polygon Angles, Start Relax. Okay, so it comes out a little weird initially, and it's trying to get there. You can increase the amount, and that will start twisting it out a little faster. Alright, maybe even more. Alright, now what we can do is actually take pieces like this. Oops, take pieces like this, and I'm going to grow that by a little bit, and then pull it out like this, grab these two, pull them out. So what's happening is this thing is unfolding on itself. I'm going to grow it, grow it, grow it, grow it, and grow that. I'm going to just drag that out there. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find wherever this thing is pinching and twisting, and trying to help it relax and sort of understand where it's supposed to be. If I grab this and expand it out, I can see that it's twisted like that, and that should help this sort of understand where it's supposed to go. If it's crossing over on itself, we can fix that too. Grab it, twist it, relax, flip it over, and then we can try the whole thing again. There we go. That's much closer to what we want. Do it again, and do it again. Cool. Another tool we can use is reshape elements, which is straighten selection, which once it's sort of straight is a good option. And for now, I'm just going to move this up here and get it sort of out of the way. So that's basically straight and basically organized. So that's good. So that part's done. Next, we're going to actually do the bottom portion of the lip here. So you could say that this side and this side could all be aligned together. That would make a lot of sense to me. This edge itself through here also needs to be selected and cylindrical map. Now this is going to be inverted though, right? Because we're doing it from the inside. Make sure I get it all. Alright, 1, 2, 3. Okay, cool. So once again, I've got that all on the inside. I'm going to grab this and scroll down. Cylindrical map that from Z as well. And I'm going to pull up my second window here so I don't have to scroll so much. Grab this. Now this is going to, move it, grab this. I'm going to need to flip this because if you go to select inverted, you'll notice it's inverted because it was on the inside. So I'm going to flip it first. And then I'm going to try and do the same thing I did with the other one. All right. So grab it, tools, relax, polygon, start relax. So it starts out like that. Make sure you're only getting pieces of it. It's just confused. It's trying to find itself. It's going to go on a backpack trip across Europe. Alright, grab it. Let's try it again. Polygon angles. Good, 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 good. It's coming. Slowly coming. Grab just part of it again. Pull that across. Grab this, move it across. That, move it out. Alright. Grab the whole thing. And polygon. Relax it again. Relax it again. Now try this. And it works. Alright, cool. Relax it again. Okay, good. So this is the inside section. So that's basically relaxed. We'll have to adjust it in a minute. But that's the inside there. This part as well, we could probably ring that. So if we open it up in the UV editor, by selecting that one, we should be able to do something like that. See if it's going to work for us. There we go. That's our ring. Now because this is flat, we can sort of just ring it from the bottom. We could also grab it as part of the other piece. It depends how detailed you want to be. A lot of ways we could probably just grab all of these three and then grab them and then ring them like this. Careful you don't get too much stuff you don't want. Move it. Yeah, it's all selected here. Let's get this out of the way. Left. Deselect all of that. And then also deselect these. We could go from the bottom and try and grab them as well. Make sure you're using Q so you don't accidentally move anything. Grab those. And then we could expand it, and then we should have done that before. Now I've got to do all this again. Alright, cool. So we've got that. We can planar map this from the top, which is Z. So planar map from Z. We got this section. Now we're going to have to flip it because it's the underside, not the top side. So I'm going to flip it. Now we can grab the object, tools, relax, poly, boom. And you'll notice that the two edges have flipped out. So that should be all we need. If we wanted to grab this bottom edge too, we could grow it out. Grow and grab those as well. It's debatable whether or not the grain would be ideal for that spot, since probably it should be flat. So the grain, if you think about what direction the grain should be, from the planar map, we're going to planar map from the top, from Z, open UV editor, tools, relax, poly, boom. It did that because I forgot to flip it. Tools, relax, poly. Alright, cool. So there's our inside edge and our under edge. So that's good. We'll move that out of the way. Okay, cool. We're almost done actually, which is nice. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and grab just the bottom, because I'm going to, not with the circle though, grab it just with this section here, and I'm going to deselect these so I get just the bottom. Okay, I'm going to planar map that from Z. Now once again, that's going to be from the inside, so I'll have to flip it. Grab it, flip it. We can relax it, but it probably isn't going to relax much at all, if at all. Relax, poly. Good. Now it didn't. If you have it, if it flips out on you, it's because you forgot to flip it using this tool up here before you start relaxing. All right, cool. Closed. Now, this section here from the front, let's go ahead and grab all of that, and then let's grow that out a bit until we get right up to where we want. Wow, that was convenient. I got perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. That's lucky. All right, now the problem is these feet aren't going to work well with cylindrical mapping, so I'm actually going to hold Alt and deselect these feet. Make sure you have ignore back facing off, because I want to ignore the back facing, and I want to get all of these edges so that when I do cylindrical map, I'm not going to have weird lumps in it. All right, so we're going to cylindrical map this from Z. Open the UV editor. Looks like we're going to have to rotate it a little bit, so hit E and rotate until it lines up in a logical way. That's probably pretty good. What I'm looking for is a nice square image. We're still going to have to modify it some, but that's a good start. So I'm going to maximize that, grab this, and double check to see where all of our edges are. Now, it's almost inevitable when you do something like this, you're going to have weird edge problems here. I don't know how to fix that or make it so it doesn't happen. All I know is we have to fix it. So we're going to have to go through and actually snip or fix all these. I'm going to move it closer to the tool so I don't have to go so far. So I'm going to stitch these over and over. Notice how I move the piece closer to the tool so I can get to it. And then we just click. Notice I'm not marquee selecting. If I do this and stitch, it goes real bad. So we can't do that. We have to just click on it, stitch it. Click, and stitch. Click, and stitch. Now the big thing is we're going to want the grain for this to go the opposite direction, because this will be a different part of the tree if you think about it. This will be closer to like the trunk of the tree. So the wood grain will need to go up and down. So if we set it up right, we could have it so that one piece of wood will sort of be in the right direction for everything, but then we'd be sort of stuck dealing with packing our UV in accordance to whatever direction the grain's going, which is okay, but it's probably better to not do that and set it up so that we can just pack it in as tight as we can, and see how that goes. I'm going to go ahead and hit this button here, which is straighten selection. I've tried, make sure you save your work too. I'm going to save this as, save as lay table day 2, save. Yes, I'm going to replace it. Okay. Because some of these buttons over here tend to crash things. Now the problem is, if you actually lay this out flat, it's going to give you some weird stretching, which will end up making your wood material look very odd. So we're going to sacrifice some accuracy and a little bit of warping so that the grain at least goes the right direction. So I'm not going to modify this until it's flat. You'll notice if we go to tools and we relax and we try and relax by poly, same sort of thing happens, and that's no good. It's not going to work for us. We can try different types, so we can do edge angles. And same sort of thing, because realistically it should twist like that. If we try this and then relax by centers, it's once again not going to work out great. So it's kind of just best to leave that the way it is. What we're left with is these pieces here, which we can just grab because we already have them. They should be planar map from the top, right? Which they kind of already were. I just want to make sure. And now we can go to tools, relax, by poly. Boom. Now they all relax equally together, which is nice because now we can make sure that they are all set up. So now we're basically done. We need to add a material that we can judge our file from. Now if you saw the beginning of the video, I had a checker map on there, so I'm going to create that checker map again. Under maps, checker. Okay. I was thinking doing like a hot pink and teal for a Hotline Miami vibe, because why not? It's not teal enough. More orangey. Yeah, like that. Cool. All right, I'm gonna drag that over. Actually, not yet. Go up to there. We go. All right, and now this file, these checkers are way too big, so I'm gonna go back into my map because I forgot to do the tiling. I usually do 5, and I think I did 5 before, but I think I'm gonna go a little smaller, like an 8. Let's see how that looks. There. Good. Perfect. So that's a little more dense. You can see I've got different disparity between how dense these checkers versus the edge versus the bottom. Now we're getting some warping here, right? That's going to happen. And we have our edge here where the feet are, and the bottom is good. But this is a good start. So let's go in our UV editor. I'm going to maximize this, and now I'm going to start figuring out what the most important pieces are and how can I make sure that everything is packed in as efficiently as possible. Okay, so the most important piece I would think is the tabletop. It's also probably the biggest. I want to know, I'm going to make sure that that's going to be nice and big, but I also know that this also needs to take up a large portion of the UV. So we kind of have a disparity here, because we need to make sure that this aligns together well. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and fit this in, and because I think this is probably the most important part, I'm going to leave it just like that. Down here, I want the checker map to be roughly the same size. So I'm going to sort of eyeball the side here, look at the top, how big they are versus how small that is. And I want to try and sort of get it so that they're roughly the same size. So that's square, and there is roughly the same density. See, I've got to ballpark it, so I'm looking at that versus these squares. That's not going to be identical, and we're going to have some stretching, especially up here. But it's going to be close enough. We're going to have to go with close enough, and that's pretty close. So I should be grabbing by element. Grab that. So I'm going to move that in here. Now I can actually do a little trick here, because what I want to do is I want to make sure that this object, this one, is going to tile smoothly. And there's a way to do that, because right now I've got an edge. I've got an edge right here. And with a real material, you're going to notice that edge. So what I can do is I can actually take part of this edge and split it. I'm going to grab this edge here. I'm going to break it. And then I'm going to take this whole section right here. I'm going to flip it and put it back over itself. What that does is it kind of overlaps for sure, but it also gives us a loop so that this edge aligns perfectly with the other edge. Right? We just need to sort of shift and drag that in. And now these two pieces are perfectly aligned with one another. Right? Which means I can put a material on there and they will automatically, I need to hold control to resize this to the edge, they will automatically loop well. Okay, now that means both of these can get a little bit larger. I can make this a little larger. I can move this so that it fits a little better. Alright, cool. Now I've still got to fit all these other pieces in. Now one piece in particular, all of these pieces should align on top of each other, because why not? So there's a cool tool over here that allows you to rotate things by 90 degrees around the pivot. Now if you haven't messed with a pivot at all, you should be able to just rotate them so that they all align together. You'll notice that I'm choosing either the top one or the bottom one, and I'm going to make sure they all match up with the bottom. And now I'm just going to align them all together. And I can do that just sort of sloppy at first, and then scoot in, and then start moving them with more detail now. Once I get them all aligned, I could make sure that they're all perfectly aligned if I wanted to by actually going into vertex mode, like UV mode. You can actually grab, not by element, but I can grab this object here, and I can align all of these to their own pivots, like that, like that. By doing that, it snaps them horizontally and then vertically. I could do the same thing here. I could snap them all horizontally, then snap each one vertically, each side vertically. I could align all of these together by snapping them all vertically. And now we've got at least this beginning section sort of aligned together. Now you could go through and do each one of those. I don't think we're really going to need to do that on a large scale set. So now we need to look at, okay, this should probably all be rotated. Oops. This, oh, whoops. All be rotated this direction. And we know that this actually fits right there. So if I hold, was it Shift? No, Alt. Yes, Alt, Control and Alt. So if I hold Control and Alt, it shrinks it shrinks equally. But what I want to do is make sure that this and this are roughly the same size. Because if that's the same size, then they're roughly the same density. And because they're going to be together, I need to make sure I select by element. Because they're going to be basically the same piece of wood, I don't want extreme distance or differences in the wood grain. I don't want this to be like super thin wood grain and this to be super thick and blurry. I'd rather it be consistent. We know there's going to be an edge there, which sort of makes sense anyway. But we want to make sure that the wood grain makes sense and is consistent. All right, so now we need to fit this somewhere. Realistically, I would fit this in the corner and overlap the other part of the table because it's going to be roughly the same anyway. And this makes it so that it's equal. I can even squeeze it to the corner like that and I'll squeeze it out like that. Now that should align pretty much perfectly, and if not, it's close enough. We could move it down if we wanted to. We could take both of them and make sure they're both fit. They fit a little better to the corner. And we want to make sure we leave a little bit of leeway there. Alright, so now all we have left is this. Now this is the side edge of the table. Right now it's way too dense. We need to shrink it down. And we're probably going to do the same sort of thing we did before. Now, in the last time, we talked about, okay, how can we fit this in and not have it so it doesn't loop around on itself in an odd way and still fit. So I'm looking to try and make sure that these are roughly the same size. And that looks, notice I've been lining it up here. That's roughly right, but it's way too big to fit. So what we're going to do is the same thing we did with the bottom here. We're going to clip it in the center and flip it. So I'm going to grab this edge in the center. Make sure I'm not grabbing the whole thing. I'm going to grab this edge in the center. I'm going to snap it. I'm going to grab this piece here, and I'm going to flip it. And then I'm going to hold Shift and drag it over, and I'm going to align it with itself. Holding Shift will make it so I can't move it up and down. And it should stay perfectly aligned, or at least very, very, very closely aligned. And now if I hold Shift as I drag this out, it'll line up perfectly. All right, there we go. So it's overlapping. Now I can just take both of these pieces, figure out where I want to put them. And I think I'm going to put them down here. I'm going to hold Shift as I resize them until they fit. Like that. Hold Shift again, drag it down so it's on the edge. Obviously these can't overlap. Grab that, move it up. Alright, that's basically where we're at. Now we could try and do some rearranging. The sizes are good. We could take this and see if we can move it down. I don't know if that's going to actually save us a whole lot of space. We're kind of going to be stuck either way. Look at our density. Our density looks good. All the squares are basically the same. We're just wasting a lot of space but that might not be able to be fixed because we can't increase the size of the feet, right? And if we can't really increase the size of this edge, we align it like this, we could do that, but once again, it's not going to help us much because this is sort of stuck. We could cut this in half, but then we risk like a serious edge mirroring problem. It would make it look a lot smoother. Depending how you wanted to, it wouldn't be a terrible idea. We could try and resize this so it fits a little better, like there. See how that density looks. Looks pretty good. It's a little better. Rotate this by 90 degrees and fit it here. It is what it is. I don't think we can actually get away from making it a whole lot bigger. I think we're stuck. We can try and make it slightly bigger. Maybe going this way a little bit. And holding shift and dragging this back over. But that's basically it. It's as good as it's going to get. I can move that over. Maybe move it up. Holding shift. Come down here. I should hold control. Fit it to there. Make sure I'm not overlapping anywhere. That's probably as big as I can get. It is what it is. It's the nature of the beast. Like I said, we could try and fold this back over on itself. We could snip it here and fold this back over to see if that helps. But once again, we're risking more density issues. Okay? So I would leave this the way it is. If you really wanted to, you could take this. If you feel like overlapping these is going to be too obvious, you could always go through and grab and shift and drag them over so that they're separated. That could be useful. But for now, I think this is what I'm going to go with. If you look at the UV itself, it looks like, oh, I forgot something. I forgot the bottom. Now, the bottom is very, very inconsequential. So I'm not too worried about it. I'll just fit it anywhere. Up there is fine. I'll make it as big as I can without wasting any room. And there you go. That's good. So that's going to need to be the bottom. We should probably have some sort of grain issue here. And that's it. That is it. We're good to go. Alright, so now all we need to do is export it. So go to Tools, Render UVW Template. 1024 is fine. Render UV. Pops under like it always does. Go to File. And save it as lathe table _ UV. Save. Alright. There we go. So that part is done. And there, this part is now done. We've got our Hotline Miami looking table. I can zoom in a little bit to give you a better render of it. There we go. Render it out just for fun. Save. I'm going to overwrite my old one, because why not? And we're done. I'm going to save this as Day2 Final, so you have it if you need it. That was weird. And that's it. All right. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.